August 7, 1942. Morning light spread slowly across the waters of the Solomon Islands. The Pacific is quiet, its surface broken only by the distant movement of ships and the faint ripples of early wind. For a moment, it almost feels peaceful. Then the sound arrives. A Mitsubishi A6M Zero slices through the pale clouds above the ocean, its narrow wings glinting in the rising sun. The aircraft is light, graceful, almost delicate in appearance, yet in the hands of an experienced pilot, it has become one of the most feared fighters in the world. Inside the cockpit, a Japanese ace scans the horizon with calm precision. Months of war have sharpened his instincts. He has fought in China. He has fought in the Philippines. Again and again he has faced enemy aircraft and watched them fall away beneath his guns. Across the sky, a formation of American F4F Wildcats climbs to intercept. Their aircraft are heavier, less agile in turns, but their guns are stronger. The first streaks of tracer fire tear through the morning air. For months, Japanese pilots have entered battles like this with confidence. Many even smile when they see the American fighters approaching. But today, something has changed, because American pilots are no longer fighting the old way. And in the seconds ahead, the balance of the Pacific Air War will begin to shift. The rise of Japanese air dominance. To understand why these battles mattered so much, we must step back to the years before the Pacific War began. During the late 1930s, Japan invested enormous effort into building one of the most skilled naval air forces in the world. Pilot training was long, difficult, and extremely selective. Only a small percentage of candidates survived the demanding program. Those who graduated were not simply pilots. They were masters of aerial combat. Japanese training emphasized instinct, awareness, and aggressive maneuvering. Pilots practiced dogfighting constantly, learning to read the sky and anticipate the movement of enemy aircraft. Their aircraft reflected the same philosophy. The Mitsubishi A6M Zero, introduced in 1940, was designed with maneuverability as its highest priority. Engineers stripped away armor and heavy protection in order to reduce weight. The result was a fighter that could climb quickly, turn sharply, and maintain extraordinary control in tight aerial combat. In skilled hands, the Zero seemed almost alive. When the Pacific War erupted with the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, these advantages quickly became clear. Japanese fighters swept across the Pacific with alarming success. American and Allied aircraft were destroyed in large numbers during the early campaigns in the Philippines, Malaya, and the Dutch East Indies. Many Allied pilots had never faced an aircraft that could outturn them so easily. The result was devastating. Veteran Japanese aces, such as Saburo Sakai, Hiroyoshi Nishii, and Tetsuzo Iwamoto, built reputations that spread quickly across the Pacific. Their victories reinforced the belief that Japanese pilots ruled the sky. Confidence grew with every successful mission. In the early months of the war, it seemed as though nothing could challenge their dominance. The American learning curve, but the Americans were learning. The primary U.S. Navy fighter early in the war was the Grumman F4F Wildcat. Compared to the Zero, it appeared inferior in several ways. The Wildcat could not turn as tightly. It was slower in maneuvering combat. However, the aircraft had important advantages. It was tougher. It had armor plating to protect the pilot. It had self-sealing fuel tanks that reduced the risk of catastrophic fires. Most importantly, it carried 6 powerful .50 caliber Browning machine guns. These weapons fired heavy rounds, capable of tearing apart lightly built aircraft. American pilots soon realized a critical truth. They did not need to outturn the Zero in order to defeat it. They only needed to hit it. This realization led to one of the most important tactical innovations of the war, the Thatch Weave. Invented by Lieutenant Commander John Thatch, the maneuver allowed two aircraft to protect each other during combat. Instead of fighting individually, pilots would fly in a coordinated pattern. If a Zero attempted to pursue one aircraft, the second pilot could turn inward and fire. The tactic transformed aerial combat. The hunter suddenly became the target. By mid-1942, these ideas were beginning to take hold among American fighter squadrons, and Japanese pilots would soon discover that their opponents were adapting quickly. Human skill, the Japanese aces were extraordinary pilots. Their training emphasized individual skill and aggressive combat. They were taught to rely on instinct and precision, engaging enemies in close-range dogfights where maneuverability and reflexes could decide the outcome. Many of them approached combat like aerial duelists. American doctrine was different. U.S. Navy pilots were trained to fight as teams. Discipline and coordination were emphasized over individual heroics. Early in the war, this approach sometimes appeared less impressive than the daring maneuvers of Japanese aces. But teamwork had advantages. Two aircraft covering each other could defeat a single opponent, no matter how skilled that opponent might be. As the war continued, this difference in philosophy began to shape the outcome of many engagements. Technology and firepower technology also played a decisive role. The Zero was exceptionally agile, but it lacked armor protection. Its light design made it vulnerable to heavy gunfire. American fighters carried multiple .50-caliber machine guns capable of sustained fire. When pilots learned proper gunnery techniques, these weapons became devastatingly effective. Instead of chasing enemy aircraft through complex turning battles, American pilots began focusing on deflection shooting. They aimed ahead of the target as a flight path. When the timing was correct, a short burst could destroy an aircraft instantly. Skill still mattered, but precision began to matter more. Psychological warfare confidence can shape the outcome of battle as much as weapons. Japanese aces entered the war with extraordinary confidence, built through early victories. Many believed their skill would always give them the advantage. American pilots initially approached these encounters with caution, sometimes even fear. But each successful engagement changed that balance. Every Zero shot down reinforced the belief that Japanese fighters were not invincible. Slowly, confidence shifted from one side to the other. The Guadalcanal map animation. Aircraft scrambling from Henderson Field. August 1942. The United States launched its first major offensive in the Pacific. The target, Guadalcanal. Control of this island meant control of the surrounding sea lanes and control of the sky above it. The newly captured Henderson Field became the center of the air war. American fighters launched daily to intercept Japanese bombers and escort fighters arriving from distant bases like Rewrote. These missions pushed both sides to their limits. Japanese aces still possessed incredible skill, but the Americans had refined their tactics. Wildcats climbed above incoming formations. They attacked from altitude. They struck quickly, then climbed again. Instead of chasing turning Zeros, they controlled the energy of the fight. Every engagement became a calculated exchange of altitude, speed, and firepower. When precision changed the Skydog fight archival footage, tracer rounds streaking across the sky. In one engagement after another, American pilots demonstrated the growing effectiveness of their tactics. Zeros attempting to pursue Wildcats often found themselves caught in crossfire. Short bursts of .50-caliber rounds tore through wings and fuselages. The lightly armored Japanese aircraft could not absorb the punishment. Even experienced aces were vulnerable. For the first time, the myth of Japanese invincibility began to crack. Pilots who once entered battle with supreme confidence now faced disciplined formations that anticipated their moves. The skies above Guadalcanal became a proving ground. Experience versus adaptation. Instinct versus precision. And slowly, the balance began to shift. The cost of the turning point wrecked aircraft, exhausted pilots, damaged airfields. The consequences extended far beyond individual battles. Japan had entered the war with a small but elite group of veteran pilots. Their training pipeline was slow and extremely selective. Replacing experienced aviators proved difficult. Each loss mattered. The United States faced losses too, but American industry and training programs expanded rapidly. New pilots arrived. New aircraft entered service. Fighters like the F6F Wildcat would soon dominate the skies. The cumulative effect became impossible to ignore. Japanese aces were still dangerous, but they no longer ruled the Pacific skies. The shift in air superiority, American carrier task forces advancing across the Pacific. By 1943, the momentum of the air war had changed. American pilots flew with increasing confidence. Their tactics worked. Their guns worked. Their teamwork worked. Japanese pilots, once the unquestioned masters of the sky, now faced an opponent who had learned quickly and who possessed the industrial strength to sustain the fight indefinitely. The smiles that once greeted outdated guns disappeared. Now every engagement carried uncertainty, because American aim had rewritten the odds. Slow aerial shots of the Pacific Ocean at sunset. War is often remembered through machines. Planes, ships, weapons. But the story of the Pacific Air War was ultimately about people. Pilots on both sides faced impossible odds in fragile machines thousands of feet above the ocean. Japanese aces demonstrated extraordinary skill. Their early dominance reshaped the opening months of the war. But the Americans adapted. They studied their enemy. They improved their tactics. And they turned precision into power. The skies over Guadalcanal proved a timeless truth about warfare. Skill can win battles, but adaptation wins wars. In the end, the Pacific Air War was not decided by the aircraft alone. It was decided by the men who learned faster, who aimed better, and who refused to stop improving. High above the Pacific, where sunlight once flashed across the wings of smiling aces, the balance of power had changed forever.